Welcome to another episode of the West End Zone podcast. Nick Echeverria, aka West End Zone, here. We have a great guest today. Super excited to uh, share with you guys Cris Garcia of the Dallas Cowboys. I had the pleasure of coaching Cris from 2009 to 2012. Shared some stories from back then. He was super nice enough to come on the channel with us and share some of his life experiences. Just an amazing conversation. Could have spoken with him for the next week or so about so many different topics. Just great vibes, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you guys. All right, cool. So, Cris, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna, I, there's like my perspective of you, and like the way that I see you is like maybe different than the average person. That sort of first heard about you in 2015 with some of the stuff that that occurred outside of a bar in Gainesville. But I've been doing sort of like this summer coach series and kind of getting into like the vocation of being a coach, like the sort of like sort of human aspect of it, and talking about not so much like scheme stuff and what coverages and what fronts for this and things like that, and like more talking about more big picture topics like culture, like giving back and improving people's lives and things like that. And um, before I turn it over to you, one quick story. You know, uh, Cris obviously is a current assistant coach for the Dallas Cowboys. My first memory of you, I think you may have been like in like ninth grade, maybe
Yeah.
eighth grade, and you were a JV defensive end, um, and maybe you played O line too. So back then summer workouts were like this. We had like 6 a.m. workouts for the varsity. Then after the varsity was done, JV would start at like maybe like 10 or something, and it was like way hotter. It was like not fun, and we didn't have that many kids showing up, for JV workouts. But you always did. You were, um, a super young kid, and I'll never forget me, Eddie, Gonzo, Joey, and maybe someone else were in the car, and we were driving to Wendy's to eat lunch following workouts, and we're driving down A Street, and we saw you walking from like a pretty far distance from school in the heat with all your gear to make it on time to summer workouts. And that's when we knew that like you would be successful, and you were way more than we thought. And that sort of drive, it's not in every person, and I want to know where that comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you remember that. I remember it too. It was hot as hell those days, man. But fortunately, I didn't do it for too long because Coach Mario ended up seeing me one day walking, and he ended up being my ride the rest of the summer. But
Yes.
definitely had a unique upbringing. So I don't even know if you know this. Only a couple people do because I mean, as a young kid, you're kind of care a lot about what other people think. So I really didn't talk about it much. But my dad, he went to prison when I was 9 years old. So I had a different upbringing, was raised by a single mom. Have a relationship with my dad now. He's out and all that. So, but when I was 9 years old, I started playing Little League football right when my dad went into prison. And there was just something that attracted me to the game of football. And I was thinking about it earlier today. I was on a road trip and I was like, it's a weird expression, but football in itself is almost like a drug. People use drugs to kind of escape reality and all that. For me, football and football practice, that was the same thing. So whatever was going on in my mind, troubling that day, I go out there for 2, 3 hours on the football field, and all I'm thinking about is playing football, getting better, being with my teammates, having a good time. So in a sense, it was kind of an escape from reality, but at some point, it just became a passion. Like once you start to play the game, there's no feeling like it. Making a big play, celebrating with your teammates, the losses, the wins. There's just something about the game that's unexplainable, and I think that's why so many people are attracted to it. So that definitely had something to do with it. I always had an inner drive probably to change my circumstances. Obviously, I was fortunate enough. My grandmother knew Father Marcelino, who's the president of the school back in the
Of
day. They
course, of
went to
course,
school
of
back
course.
in Cuba. So ended up getting a scholarship to Belen, and it kind of changed my life, brought me around a different atmosphere of people and kind of showed me what I wanted in my life. So it was something that started at a young age, man, and had a lot of great influences that helped pave the road.
Nice, man. Yeah, I could relate with what you said about, football sort of being like a drug, and I'm not, like I kind of don't, I sort of don't shy away from this fact about me is, I ended up getting sober back in 2016, and which
Congrats.
and it, like, it's funny, like I kind of always had, a weird relationship with alcohol, and like it wasn't until I didn't have playing football, coaching football, that was gone, is when I like actually had a problem with it, and I've since, I've been sober ever since, and but yeah, man, like it's there's football's not for everyone. It's hard, and people don't understand that not only is it physically hard, it's mentally hard. It's a smart person's game, which I'm sure you now coaching in the NFL, the best players are smart. They're, yes, they're physically freaks. Yes, that's great, but they're smart. You know. So, tell us some more about you do you always want to play like Division 1 football? Is that something that you really wanted?
Yeah, most definitely. And it's funny because it was always like a pipe dream. You grow up as a kid, you're watching the Hurricanes and the Gators on TV, and you look at these guys as celebrities. You don't view it as something that you can possibly do in the future. Obviously, it's a dream and a goal, but you almost view it as kind of like a fairy tale. And I'll never forget after my freshman season of JV football, and I'm not saying this just because I'm on the podcast. This is real life. So our season ends. I think we went undefeated, and I'm getting ready to turn in our pads, that little shed in the back there by Belen. And as I'm turning in my pads, Coach Lou, he was like, "You're getting bumped up to varsity for the rest of the season."
Yeah.
So I was excited to hear that news, but I also had just made the freshman basketball team, so I wasn't going to get to go to basketball practice anymore. So I kind of tell him, I'm like, "Coach, I made the basketball team. I'm going to be missing practice then." And he goes, "You're not going to get a basketball scholarship. Football's your meal ticket." And it was like, in my mind, I had never actually thought that I can earn a football scholarship until that moment. And it was probably the most minute thing that happened in his life, but it's still something that sticks with me to this day. And we'll get into it later, but that's a big part of why I got into coaching.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I actually saw Coach Lou on Saturday. We trained jiu-jitsu at the same place, and he's sort of my coach there because like I'm like he's always there, and I'm the guy that's like not always there. He's like, "Get over here, dude! Like, let's go!" And but yeah, no, it's so you basically like you kind of like get like a glimpse of hope. It's like you kind of like get that seed in your head that it's possible. Someone believed in you, and yeah, I mean, um so on JV, that year we were really good, and then then you get moved up, and I remember by your senior season, you were like a dominant force, and it was, maybe we may have had you like in the wrong spot. Just playing at Belen, we don't have that many big guys,
No
so
doubt.
we're like, look, man, he's like moderately big. Let's put him at like defensive line, and that's where you were for, I think, for a while, and I think you might have also played guard too. No.
Yeah, my senior year we were short on bodies, so I ended up
Yep.
starting both ways. And I think nobody at Belen had done that since probably around the time you played. So
Yes.
yeah, it was fun. It was I was a little bitter about it at first, but then at the end of the day, man, football is a team sport, so it was all about getting dubs.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I had on Eddie on the podcast, maybe like 3 weeks ago, and we talked about the importance of depth and all that type of stuff. And yeah, that was a season that two. I think it was 2012.
Yep.
That was a tough season. Especially after the previous 3 seasons of just a ton of success and dominating of the teams. That was not the best season, um, but yeah. So look, you didn't really get the scholarship offers, that you were owed. Let's call it for real. And then you ended up trying at a Division 2 school. No,
Yep.
okay. So like, how's that situation like? Like you're at a D2 school and you're like, I still have the goal to go D1, or is it more like you get there and you're kind of like, disenchanted by the whole thing? I know for me, I went to go play Division 3 ball, and it was like just different. Like it was not playing like at Belen, and it was just it felt different, and I didn't love it until later.
Yeah, most definitely. So just to rewind a little bit, my whole high school career, like once that seed was planted and somebody saw that vision for myself, I had dedicated everything to go Division 1. Like that was my number one goal. Like I would pack 3 meals a day, plus eat my lunch at Belen, like working out extra twice a day. Like my whole life up to that point had been dedicated to go D1. And I got really close. There were a bunch of schools that were close to offering me, but at the end of the day, none all that fell short. And my
Right.
only offer was Division 2 Malone University in Canton, Ohio. So when that happened, I was probably by the end of the season, I was about 250. When I didn't get that Division 1 scholarship, I was devastated. I
Yep.
still signed on signing day. I put on a smile, but I was, you know what I mean? I felt like a failure. So I didn't
Right.
work out at all going into my freshman season at Malone. I probably went from 250 to 205, and that's no joke. So
Wow.
that they recruited a D lineman to Malone University defensive end, and I show up at 205, and
They're like, who the hell are you?
yeah, they go, "What happened to you?" So fortunately, there was a kid that got academically ineligible at linebacker. So I hadn't played
Right.
linebacker since little league. They ended up putting me at linebacker, and I was back on the football field, so I was excited about that. And once I put the helmet on again and touched the grass, all
Yeah.
that excitement and rush came back. And
Yeah.
it
It came
wasn't
back.
about the logo. It wasn't about where I was playing. It was just about being out there on that field. So once I got there, I was fortunate enough to make the transition to linebacker. Had a great season. You know what I mean? I think I was like third or fourth in tackles, led the team in TFLs or something like that as a freshman. So it
Right.
was a fun experience, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. I felt like there was more to it. I felt like I could play at a higher level. So after that first semester, I ended up transferring back home at first to Florida Tech in Melbourne,
Right.
which was another Division 2 school. And then after a semester there, I was like, this still ain't it. So semester, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go walk on at the University of Florida. Also, my current wife and my girlfriend at the time was at the University of Florida, so that was kind of another nugget. Like, hey, let's go over there.
So I wanted to ask you, um, growing up, were you a Hurricanes fan, Gator fan? What were you?
I was a Hurricanes fan.
Okay. All right.
I
There
was
you
I
go.
was I was I
Okay.
was I was a diehard Canes fan, man. I remember going with your cousin to the games. He had season tickets,
Yeah.
like Corey Harris, all
Yeah.
those dudes back in the day, man. I was a big Canes fan. I looked up to those teams.
So okay, so like that explains why Gainesville, right? So so your current wife is there, and you basically were like, look, I'm gonna bet on myself, go all in. If they're not gonna find me like somewhere else, I'm gonna show up, and they're gonna see me.
Absolutely. So it was funny that first year. So I'd spent a year. My freshman year was at those two Division II schools. Next year, you cannot transfer to the University of Florida until you're a junior. You need your 60 credits. So I
Uh,
went to Santa Fe Community College in Gainesville for a year. And I
right.
knew I wanted to walk on. So I got in touch with the video staff. I had a buddy, Christian Suarez, you know Christian, who was working with the Florida Gator video staff. And he got me a
Hold on,
job
hold on,
as a
hold on, hold
volunteer.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Christian Suarez, right?
Yeah.
He's a current college professor, right?
Yes. I think he's in Boulder, Colorado right now.
That's amazing. Look, this guy, for people don't know who this is. This guy had a composition notebook with like our whole defensive playbook written in, and every single play that every single person could possibly run against us. And this guy was like an absolute brain. And doesn't shock me that that he was there for you. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, man. So I was fortunate enough to have Christian in my corner, and got me a volunteer position as a student assistant working on the video staff. So I was out there filming practice and all that kind of stuff, just so I can get in close contact with the coaches. They see who I am, and eventually in hopes of walking on at the University of
So
Florida.
I mean, like at that time on the video staff, like in your mind, are you just singularly focused on just getting on the field, or is there a seed planted then, hey, look, like maybe after football I can come back and coach and do something like that, since you were kind of on the coaching staff, kind of? Or is that something like, looking back, you thought maybe that you could get into coaching?
Most definitely, at that time, my singular focus was getting on the field,
Right.
but being around that environment, definitely the seed was planted that I did want to coach. And it's funny, I remember being back in Little League or in certain situations where coaches would be like, man, you're going to make a better coach than a player, which you don't want to hear at the time, but
No, you were not that kind of guy. You were
yeah,
not that kind of guy. You were like, no, this guy's a stud. I mean, look, like, definitely, if you would have asked me back then, I would have said for sure this guy would have been an awesome coach. But you were a real good player, man, for real.
appreciate that. Appreciate that. Definitely doesn't feel that way when I'm walking around the Dallas Cowboys facility, but but
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But yeah, man, the seed was definitely planted, and we'll get into it later. But my position coach later at the University of Florida, Randy Shannon,
Of course.
I told him I wanted to be a coach as my tenure was ending as a player, and he goes, man, you don't need a coach. Like, go do something else. This is too many hours. Like, this is too crazy of a profession. Like, go do something else. And I was still drawn to it, man, even though he's still a mentor to this day for me. And it's
Okay.
funny, we're talking about being a Canes fan. I walk in day one as a walk-on, and Randy Shannon's my position coach. And for those who don't know, obviously he was the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, Hurricane legend. So that was also another treat of playing at the University of Florida.
Yeah, that's funny. Like, I was gonna ask you actually, who some of your mentors were going into it. I know that your DC, your in like 2000, I think 2016, 17 was Jeff Collins,
Yep.
who I think he was on Mario Cristobal's staff at FIU at some point.
Yep.
And then obviously, like, he's been the head coach at Georgia Tech and things like that. Um, is he one of your mentors as well, or is it more like a Randy Shannon?
Definitely. I think one of the greatest things about this profession is giving back, because nobody got to where they're at on their own. Like, none of us invented the game of football. None of us invented the 4-3 defense. So to get to where you're at, man, it involves people. It's a people business. So obviously Randy Shannon was one of my mentors, and the way that I coach my guys today is modeled a lot after how he coached us. Haven't worked for him since I finished playing, but Tim Skipper, who ended up being my linebacker coach my senior year, gave me my first position coaching, or my first coaching job at UNLV. So
Nice.
Tim Skipper, was with him for 2 years, man. I owe him a lot. He's one of my mentors. Obviously, Jeff Collins, who you mentioned, he gave me my second job. So after my 2 years at UNLV, Jeff Collins hired me, who was my defensive coordinator at Florida. And then obviously I get into the league, and Jack Del Rio hires me, who
Right.
is obviously he's been in the National Football League for over 30 years, a player, defensive coordinator, and head coach. So worked for Jack for 3 years, and he took it upon himself to make sure that I was being developed as a coach, which a lot of guys don't do. So owe those guys and those men a lot.
So
Go.
so like what does that look like? That's that's pretty interesting, something you said there, that he like was making sure that you were being developed as a coach. Like, you know, I like I have no concept of what it's like, starting off in the league, and I don't like what does that mean? Is it like, for me, so I run a law firm, right? And
Yep.
and I've been in like a big law firm. I worked in like a law firm with like 500 lawyers, and I can kind of maybe get it, where like sometimes there's these like super young attorneys that you make them do work, but you're never really checking their work. You're never really checking up on them, and you just like they're just like someone to do stuff. Um, is that similar?
Yeah, very similar. So as a young coach, whether it's graduate assistant, quality control, a lot of your job is pushing paper, right? Like drawing the playbooks on a program called Visio,
Okay.
breaking down film, doing a lot of the pencil pushing work. And throughout that, if you're not being developed by who you're working for, or you're not going out there and doing it on your own, like you're going to miss that opportunity to grow, because once you get a position room or you're a coordinator, you're a head coach, like that's irrelevant. Like, yeah, the scheme's important and all that, but you got to be able to command a room, be able to instill a culture, be able to lead players, manage players, and do a ton of things outside of the realm of a computer. So I think that's crucial to have somebody in your corner like that, that's giving you feedback, saying, "Hey, you should work on this or you should do that." Or also, they respect and value your mind and say, "Hey, in staff meetings when we're game planning, speak up because I respect your opinion." You know what I mean? Because
Okay.
there's a lot of unwritten rules, right? If you're a younger coach, like, look, you're going to be quiet when you get promoted and it's your turn. Yep, now you can speak up in the staff meetings. So
Yeah.
he gave me a voice early on in my coaching career because he respected my opinion. You know what I mean? I'd earned that trust with him through consistent daily action, and I was fortunate enough that he took me under his wing.
Consistent daily action. That's funny. That's like, I back in 2016, I sort of like changed my life, and that's like one of the sort of mantras that I like live by now, where it's like, there's action, and there's more action. You know what I mean? And that's it. Like that's all you gotta do. Get up in the morning and take action. Like, you can't think your way through stuff. You got to go do stuff.
Most
So
definitely, man. It's
anyway, look, man, I like, you hit so many things there, so many topics, that I could talk to you for, I mean, like a week probably, and like barely make a dent in it. And so like, man, I want to ask you like what coverages you're running, like, like you're doing split field stuff, like I like how you used to have Belen. There's a lot of, like a lot of questions, but um, like in terms of coaching, yes, like it's obviously great to you know um implement a system and teach guys, certain techniques, and put in a defense and then see it succeed and win. That's awesome. That's obvious, right? That is clearly something great about coaching. What are some of the other things that sort of like give back to you, like in terms of that, and maybe if you can, give like a quick story.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, man. I really like to talk in threes when I'm talking to my coaches and players. There was three reasons like why I got into coaching. Number one is impact. So we talked about the story earlier with Coach Lou and the impact he had on my life with just a few
Yeah.
simple words, right?
Yeah.
You never know what's going on in somebody's mind and how you can affect them with a few simple words, right? And I feel like a coach on a daily basis has a chance to impact a person. coach is a title. Like I don't carry that lightly. Like it holds weight. When you say something in front of a group, people are listening. So make sure that it's on point and it's correct and that it's meaningful. So number one is impact. Number two is shared joy. Like there's nothing like a locker room. I think you
Yeah.
can understand this feeling. Like everybody's in pursuit of a common goal, and those highs and lows that you share with your teammates, your coaches, the staff, like that's unbelievable, man. Like you guys, I know you guys after big wins would go to Sports Grill as a staff and all that. Like I'm sure those are some of your favorite
Yeah.
memories, right? And you
Yes,
get
man. Of
those as a
course.
player
Of
too,
course.
like a big win at Catholic University, you and your boys going out later. Like there's nothing like that. So impact, the shared joy, man, and then the competition piece. Like there's nothing like putting your nuts out on the line every week to try and get a dub. Like one of the things that I think about throughout the week, I'm like, there's another coaching staff X thousand miles away putting together a game plan to try and beat us. And like
Come
we're over
like
here
like
trying to
not
devise
just beat
something to beat
you,
them.
like
Yeah,
they want to kick your ass. They want to
exactly.
physically kick your ass, and then they try and they get their asses kicked. That's like the best feeling in the world. It's
No
awesome.
doubt, man. It's an unbelievable feeling. So if you were to say why coaching, man, it'd be the impact, the shared joy, and then the competition. There's nothing like it. It's a rewarding profession.
Yeah, man. You know, like you saying it, and those terms for me makes me feel better about sort of what I do. I am a trial lawyer, right? Like I like take cases to trial, right? And it's like it's not much different. Like my impact is for my client.
Yep.
My client typically is a person that owns a home. They've had damage to their home. It's like something super big for them, right? And they come to me for help. And then, there's like the shared joy thing where I go to trial and we win, and it's like gambling because it's like I'm going for big money, and then if I lose, I'm gonna lose big money. You know what I mean? And then, so when you hit, it's a ton of fun, and you share it with the other lawyers, the staff, with your client. You go out, you have fun. Then the competition is the same thing. There's an insurance company that's somewhere else, could be in Tampa, could be here, could be somewhere in the state of Florida, that's having a mock trial. They have their experts and they're getting ready to kick your ass in court. And then you know what I mean? Like it's like the other things that I've learned like in football, like playing football, coaching football. They apply to everything, and like I'm super happy for you, man. Like it's like you're like living out a dream that I wish that I had the balls to do, but I didn't. And man, it's super awesome. Man. I'm super happy for you, man. Yeah, it's great.
Appreciate it, man. It's funny when you put into that perspective too with being a lawyer because there are a ton of similarities in it.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, man. And the profession is rewarding, but there's a ton of risk in it, man. I'm year 6 in coaching, and I think this is my 4th move. So there's a lot of other stuff to it, but it's not all the glitz and glamour.
And we're going about 27 minutes. Hey, I don't want to keep you all night. So to wrap up on this, like, it's a lot. It seems being in the coaching profession, it's a lot of like it feels similar to the stock market almost, where the perception of you and your staff, the people that you're around, can go up and down real quick. And if they're not happy with you, they'll just get rid of the whole staff, and then you gotta find like a job somewhere else, or you're doing great and maybe you get upgraded somewhere. The staff that you're on is, you know, top 10 in the NFL, and so you go from a certain level, on this team, then you do a lateral, and you go like a little bit higher, and um, what's that like?
Yeah, most definitely. So the profession is there's a ton out of your control, right? Like the
Mhm.
players go out there on Sunday and play. We try and give them the tools and the knowledge to execute and succeed. But at the end of the day, like we can't make the catch, we can't make the throw, we can't make the tackle. So it's a little bit tough, right? It's like there's a lot of stuff that's out of your control and it's going to affect your family. But I think ultimately, like, you got to have enough confidence in yourself and what you do and your beliefs that regardless of the outcome, as long as I keep staying on this process and I refine it along the way, eventually
Mhm.
there's going to be success. So I think this profession can humble you in a minute, man. In 2022,
Yeah, bro.
Washington, we were top 5 in damn near every category on defense. Had a great year on defense. I got a promotion. Things were going great. Fast forward a year later, 2023, we were 32nd in the National Football League in defense, all out of jobs. So
Yeah.
that's just 1 year to the next, man. You were top 5. I was feeling ourselves. We're great coaches, man. We're going to do big things the next year, and the National Football League will humble you real quick. And it's funny, there's a saying: the NFL stands for not for long. So
Yes.
that's what they did for us, man. Not for long. So you just got to be rock solid in your foundation and have that humility and understanding that, you know what I mean. As long as I keep staying on this process and refining that, eventually the success will come.
Trust the process, my man.
No
You've
doubt.
you've you've trust your process to this point. Keep trusting it. God is good, bro.
Amen.